OPTIX. Hello, I'm Adam, and I'm Mordy. I am the architect behind OPTIX, or Operational Platform for Threat Intelligence Exploration. And yes, that is a backronym. I couldn't help myself. It needed to be done. So, there is a very, very common and yet troublesome use case for cybersecurity analysts and most of the cybersecurity world as a whole, which is the collection of actionable, relevant threat intelligence from disparate sources into something that's actionable for analysis. Now, for a big company with their own threat intelligence platform or tip, that's not a big problem because they have their own team for this. They can spend hours and hours and hours manually going through and attributing actions or different discovered pieces of intel to threat actors and create their own intelligence. For the little guys, for the individual analysts that are sitting in companies and the very, very small threat intelligence teams of medium and small businesses, that's not as easy to do. This was actually created out of my own frustration with trying to run a security operations center and also keep on top of the threat intelligence requirements that requires as part of a managed security systems provider, managed security service provider, I should say. There was a couple of iterations of OPTIX before Replit was involved. I should be clear on that, but most of that was on the first drafts of our ingestion pipeline and our correlation pipeline and our validation pipeline. Nothing compared with the full app you see here in front. As you can see, though, I've made some significant usage of the agent overhauls over the past few weeks, and the majority of this app has been built from the original sources up into what it is today. Let's have a start and look through what we've got. So we have a number of feeding in points. The intelligence pipeline, as we see, is to collect data at one end, process it to get IOCs, behavior techniques, what you like, and push it all the way through into actionable detections, hunts, hardening requirements, control requirements, as quickly as humanly possible. Now, for those smaller groups, working together as part of a community is how we get that done in a very effective manner. Hence why we have some of that built into the platform. We have quite a number of features that enable us to pull intelligence out of things. Any documentation online will do. Any source, any sticks, that's all possible. And then we can process that through and run detection queries and do hardening requirements all in the application. Let's take a look at where that happened. So I've spun up a fake org for the purposes of today, which is kind of called example org because I'm very original. And we're looking at the data view for organization of example org at the moment. They have their own threat attributions in different sectors which they think are relevant to them. And that helps to target the feed they're getting at the end of their pipeline of extraction and process. As for what that means for the dashboards here, we have a general overview of what's going on. So we've got some priority threat cards which are related to the organization. We have our activity pulses for what's actually occurring in the world presently, what's being picked up as part of reporting, what new sticks bundles are being actively generated presently. Anything that can feed into the platform will help to understand the wider landscape that's going on. Then we've got different trends. We've got some emergent threats. We have some entities. Here's our ingestion pipeline and ingestion activity for the past few days. As you can see, there's a bit of a spike before the Easter holidays, which is just before we recorded this video. And then from there, we're able to go and actually perform ingestion, or we can perform detection query hunting, or we can create hardening the intel we've received. How do we actually get to that point? So OPTIX is more of a community-driven, source-driven program. Any community member can give a source and a type to OPTIX at its own preferential weighting that we use to validate against it, as you can see here. Essentially, you can request to have a source added. You can have some validity information about it. We've got some value analysis here to see how valuable it is for us to actually have that source present. And then from there, we are actually able to do a number of checks on the source. So we first do checks to make sure that we have a good level of quality from the source, and we can actually extract meaningful information from it. And that's for everything it finds at a location, whether that's an RSS feed or a web crawler, or can be a Discord bot. We've got Mastodon bots in here too. We have basically any sort of threat feed that you could think of, you can add into this as a plugin. We have source level approvals or disapprovals or valuable data points that we can use to set a trust level for those orgs. And then from there, if a source is repeatedly found to have a great deal of high value and high criticality data assigned to it, so good value threat intelligence, deep research, deep understanding, good understanding of the payload generation side of things as well as the defensive side of things, it will then hunt through those sources for other links that we can use to then do the same again, iterate out again. And it grows and it suggests those through discovery as new things that I think might be relevant to different cases. Naturally, we also provide a catalog of basic sources you might like, and it does suggest new ones here as you tend to run out. Most of these are enabled by default, just for the sake of access. We also have a number of features, obviously, to make your source additions easier. The coverage gaps that you might be missing, you want to go and find a specific source, or social media checks to see what you get back from putting a bot at a specific target. Your overlapping, your coverage, that kind of thing just is able to be seen pretty simply. And then they get reviews and reviewed by the source reviews. There's currently nothing. This is a fresh build. Once we have a source, though, we have quite a large amount of work that goes into getting the intelligence out of the document. And we'll go to a document here just so we can see what we've got. We don't use the research. We use, let's find a good one. Or anyone would do, actually. Let's pick this one. Labs one. So this is coming directly from Huntress Labs. Is there actually a good amount of detail here? Does not look like there is. You need to find someone or hunt. Qualies should have a good. That's all right. That's a decent amount. That's a good amount. We'll go for that. So what happens, ladies and gentlemen, is when we have a source, in this case, it's come from the Qualies blog, and this is a new article that's been made available. We have a number of passes that go to validate the data. So the first of all, there is a pass of a neural net and a regex pass. So we have a neural net which does some weighted attributions here, so you can see what the factor is. We have some regex which then contributes towards that. And if it meets a certain threshold based upon the weighting that's allocated, that's all done behind the scenes. It's able to be accepted through that first gate. At which point we have a semantic analysis, which is using an LLM to look at the context, the keying, the phrasing, which allows us to pull out more data. And in most cases, actually pull out a large volume of the payload data as well from images, for example. Information about that too. Then there's a scoring phase that happens, which is, if we have a certain threshold over a certain amount, it's quarantined, where it can be reviewed by an analyst later on. Here, for example, which is very slow at the moment. There's quite a lot in here because I haven't checked it in quite a while, and neither has any other members that are currently using this. So it's been a bit. But you can also, in quarantine, override that as well. And everything you do kind of feeds back into the pipeline. It helps to train the neural net and refine the regex, and also alter the semantic analysis performed by the LM. And then once we have our scoring done, it passes it or fails it. It gives it an Admiralty rating for its reliability and its credibility. And then it will then try to resolve any aliases there. So it tries to associate the proper amounts of ransomware groups or the different families of threat actors with their products. And then it evidences everything with evidence spans at the bottom, as you can see. What it also does is it provides a continual update of a living profile. So we go to Revel here. We've got quite a large amount of attributions and informations, all from different sources that have been running for a reasonable amount of time. And then from that, we can do alias associations, both from mTire down here, but also through inferred and asserted links through intelligence observations. And from that addition, we can see exactly what's been extracted out either from the images or from the different passes done by the engines to see exactly the attack chain for each item. And my favorite part is that we can then go and generate hunts for those things using different language models. We have only supporting about 11 of the different SIEM languages, the big ones, essentially. There is plans to support more. There's also plans to add collaborative weight, like commentary and notes that you can provide each other or keep within your organization. It's completely up to you. Sometimes can take a while. I'll just let that do that. There we go. And we obviously have a quality aura here and a feedback loop, so you can help retrain the system that does it as well in the background for your interaction. And that's one of the key things. So we've got through this extraction, entity, actionable intelligence, recommendations, and then you can then generate queries and fulfill those requirements using the platform. We can also pivot out and get more intelligence by activating deep research. Do a lot of things. But the key things to consider here is all of this is a living pipeline. We have obviously tuning, which we can do at a platform level, which is based upon the different threshold weights. This isn't all of the options that are obviously there. It's just the ones that we can want to be able to be tuning quickly, depending on observations that we're seeing in the UI. We also have the ability to enable, disable our different browser fetching methodologies and our image extraction methodologies here, but it's not necessary for the most use. We've got our semantic scoring, we've got tier 2. But all of this, and I mean all of this, is feedbacked by everything the analyst in the platform does, whether they choose to use the URL extractor, for example, to manually insert a threat report. That would then trigger our validity checking for sources and perhaps start a detection for new good sources that we can pull from that supplied URL. Or it might reinforce the credibility of a specific source in the preferred status, which will then give a greater boost to the confidence scoring and the reliability scoring of the information from that source. If we keep utilizing specific entities with specific ties to vendors, then we also have a reliability loop that goes back into the machines and entities. Speaking of entities, you see now first entity here of Revel, which has been updated 16 times over the past couple of days. We have a large amount of options we can do specifically around detecting what this person has done, or what this group has done rather, through what's been observed from across the entire internet at this point. All actionable, all to standard, all in front of the world that we're looking in. Very simple. Here is a related Fortinet vulnerability that I just clicked through. So you can see the hardening actions that are required, all linked together. And we can see that as a microscopic or a macroscopic view through our knowledge graph. It shows us all our interrelationships. Obviously, we can filter by type here. We can see our associations. We've got a kill chain view, so we can see where it lays type of kill chain, which is relevant for some cases when there has been like an initial access browser which provides initial access to a system, and then we have a ransomware deployment from a different group. We can tie the two methodologies together because of their place in the chain and what they're. Obviously, because we have a ability to do query generation, we might as well have that as a standalone feature too. So here's our query generation. We've got natural language here as well if you want to do it that way. But you can convert from one natural language query to a second without any real problems. I'm not going to do that though, because I can't think of a query, but I will go ahead and do text lateral movement using PowerShell. And then we'll generate that query. Oh, that's too short. Oh, I haven't. I haven't landed it. Silly me. And we'll generate the query. And it will come out with a query that will do approximately that. It's not 100% accurate, I won't lie to you, but it is incredibly effective at getting a certain amount of accuracy. It's about 80 to 90% accurate most of the time. And obviously we can help the machine learning with that in the back end as well, through the thumbs up and thumbs down, which comes back into query feedback, which then gives us our different modifications that we can do to it. We also have an ability to run stack key servers and stick servers from it. So we can, based upon this, create collections of specific threat actors, or we can do a scheduled push for new threat intelligence. We can go directly into new SIEMs or new SOARs to then provide up-to-date and correct, is the key term, intelligence for detections against IOCs and associate them directly back to a threat actor, all from the platform. Now, there's a couple of modes in play. We have organization mode, which is essentially a layer on top of our platform level structure. The changes for this are mainly around the situational awareness, which I'll get to in a minute, and also the ability to restrict information to the organization if desired. The same is not true for individual users. They have to just share everything. That's by design. It's designed to be collaborative. It's designed as a platform to be constantly annotated and have notes, and therefore have a greater understanding of the greater landscape because of the actions that we will put in together. We have self-made intelligence reports as part of the organization as well. That can be per organization, or it can be entirely platform-wide. We've got an example, a couple of examples here. We've got a threat actor report from when the Iranian war started a few weeks ago, which is an incredibly in-depth report using purely the data from OPTIX, and obviously an LLM to rewrite and reformat this in order to provide an executive breakdown, essentially, for what we should be looking for in this scenario, which can be useful for non-technical stakeholders. Finally, here's the key piece. So once we've got through, we've got all our data, we've made it actionable to some extent, clearly. We're not quite all the way end to end yet, but we can push it there. We then get to our situational awareness. Now, situational awareness is entirely based upon your organization profile, and it allows you to highlight specific areas or problems or APT groups which you might find threatening. And then with that, provides you with a situational awareness, which you can push out through your different channels, through email, whatever you like to call it. And also actionable cards immediately in front of you with the ability to take action, to detect, to hunt anything related to those threats. And also hardening measures that you can tick off, coverage actions you can tick off. You can assign cases to each other and leave messages and notes, either platform-wide or to your organization, to share information about what you found and suggest different KQL queries that maybe not be working for other people. And anything you can think of in terms of this tooling that you'd need, or the understanding you'd need to be able to deal with this, can be found in this page or in one of the sources that are referenced directly here. And that's your pipeline from where we got it to directly in front of your face with only relevant information. And naturally, I'm in organization mode here. I can edit my organization however I like, to change my focus points, to give different threat lists and actors. All of this changes the way that the situational awareness is presented to you. But also I can just toggle out of my org and go back to my individual workspace if I like. I don't want to be connected to it. At which point I can have my own analyst profile, which is completely separate from what we've got before. This is my analyst profile, just for reference, as testing. But you could have whatever you like. And situational awareness adapts because of it too. We've got one overlap here, and then there will be a couple of others which are changed. This one here, which wasn't here before. We've got Revil, like we saw earlier today. There's our Play ransomware. We've got True Chaos in play today. There's our Scattered Spider from the weekend. There's some Clawbot usage. These were not available, these two, in when we're looking at the organization, because our priorities were different and our technology stack were different. Therefore, the display is different. And from there, you can workbench between everybody to either within an org take ownership of the threat intelligence source and work through it, or as part of a community-based initiative to add your own information to these cards and to the entities behind them, which will help everybody in the long term. So there we have it. OPTIX is a full stack React, Express, PostgreSQL platform. We're working on getting Redis caching soon for the scalability. But it's built on Replit 4 from version 2 onwards, which is essentially the entire platform at this point. But that's not really the point. The point is that now a single analyst can take the raw data in front of us here, and instead of 40 hours like it used to be when I was doing this manually, I can, in 10 minutes, complete the majority of the Intel pipeline. And therefore reimburse that time into be defending the organization that I'm responsible for. And my team are responsible for, and the other clientele that use this. And every time somebody uses it, it gets sharper, it gets quicker. That's OPTIX. Thanks, everyone.